Welcome to our Immigration Briefing show. Today, we've got a mixed bag of updates from around the globe that's sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. First off, down under in Australia, Senator Dave Sharma is stirring the pot, talking about how owning a home is becoming a pipe dream for many young Aussies. He's also throwing shade at the lack of competition in the market, suggesting it's making the rich richer and leaving the rest in the dust. It's not every day you hear a politician calling out big business like that, especially one from one of the wealthiest areas in the country. It seems like the conversation around inequality is getting a bit of a shake-up in Australia, and not a moment too soon, if you ask me. Moving over to Canada, Vancouver has been buzzing with protests as international master's students are up in arms over changes to the provincial nominee program. It looks like STEM students can no longer waltz into permanent residency without clocking in a year of full-time work first. The government says it's all about clarity and avoiding misuse, but the students? They're not buying it. Meanwhile, in the political ad arena, the Biden and Trump camps are duking it out over immigration. Trump's super PAC is going hard with an ad that paints a pretty grim picture of Biden's immigration policies, while Biden's team is hitting back, celebrating diversity and calling out Trump's controversial comments on immigrants. It's clear immigration is a hot-button issue that's not cooling down anytime soon. And finally, a bit of a heartwarmer from Australia, where 2 Afghan refugees, defying the Taliban's oppressive rules, are now thriving in Sydney and dreaming of a future in science. It's stories like these that remind us of the human side of immigration debates. But not everyone's singing Kumbaya. Over in the UK, a think tank is challenging the perceived economic benefits of immigration, suggesting the numbers might not add up. And as the world braces for demographic shifts, some are wondering if we're ready for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. So, buckle up, folks, it's a bumpy ride in the world of immigration news. Please stay tuned for more detailed content. Unstoppable electoral waves are approaching, but who will be washed away? The Sydney Morning Herald. Australian Senator Dave Sharma recently delivered a speech in the Senate highlighting the issues of housing affordability and lack of competition in Australia. Sharma emphasized that homeownership is becoming increasingly out of reach for younger Australians, regardless of their income or savings. He warned that this could lead to social mobility challenges and increased inequality. Sharma also criticized the lack of competition in Australia, stating that aggressive pricing practices have contributed to recent inflation and that labor's share of national income has shrunk while corporate profits have surged. This viewpoint contradicts the standard line from big business that profits are not a problem and not a major driver of inflation. It is notable that Sharma, a former representative of one of the wealthiest electorates in the country, is making these points. The article suggests that this signals a shift in the politics of inequality in Australia and may indicate that parts of the Liberal Party are recognizing the urgency of responding to these changing politics. The article also highlights the need for serious policy debates on issues such as housing affordability and immigration, but questions whether the Australian political class is capable of engaging in such discussions in a nuanced manner. Hundreds protest updated BC permanent residency guidelines. CBC. Hundreds of people, including international master's students, protested against a recent update to a program that offers a pathway to permanent residency in Vancouver. The update to the Provincial Nominee Program, PNP, means that master's students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, are no longer automatically eligible for the program and instead need a year of full-time work experience. Students argue that the update was implemented with little notice and has caused upheaval in their lives. The province argues that the update provides clarity and prevents misuse of the program. Pro-Trump PAC drops Biden's invasion ad Friday, in contrast to Biden campaign change ad. Hill. A super PAC supporting former President Donald Trump, MAGA Incorporated, has released an ad criticizing President Biden on the issue of immigration. The ad features footage of immigrants rushing the border fence while Biden's voice can be heard saying, nobody is going to be deported, and there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. Trump shared the ad on his social media platform, Truth Social. In response, the Biden campaign released a Latino-focused ad calling out Trump's controversial rhetoric towards immigrants and praising the diversity they bring to the U.S. The ad, entitled Change, will be aired on digital platforms in several key states. This is the second Latino-focused ad released by the Biden campaign this week. Both candidates have visited the southern border recently, although at different locations. Russia's foreign ministry says Spanish reporter denied a visa was invited to stay. Associated Press. Spain's El Mundo journalist, Xavier Colas, claims he was forced to leave Russia because his visa was not renewed. The Russian foreign ministry says it issued the necessary documents for him to stay in the country, but the journalist says the Interior Ministry banned him for at least 5 years without explanation. Kolas had reported from Russia for 12 years and recently published a book about President Vladimir Putin's government. The cases of foreign journalists leaving Russia without visa renewal come amid a crackdown on media since Russia's military involvement in Ukraine. Moscow attackers were helped by Ukraine, claims Putin. Telegraph. Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Ukraine of assisting the 4 men who attacked a concert hall in Moscow last week. Islamic State, IS, claimed responsibility for the attack, which left 133 people dead. The US also attributed the attack to IS. Putin stated that the attackers were caught as they tried to move towards Ukraine. The Russian president likened the attack to Nazi acts, which symbolizes the Kremlin's view of its enemies in Ukraine. Both Ukraine and its Western allies have denied any links to the attack. However, there are fears that Russia will use the attack as an excuse to escalate its aggression against Ukraine. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has already claimed that the attack was staged by Russian special forces to provoke a response. Ukrainian officials have also accused Russia of using the attack to launch a new wave of propaganda against Ukraine. The Russian authorities have claimed that the 4 attackers had links to Ukraine, but have not yet provided any further details. In their home country, Seema and Sonia could not go to high school. The Sydney Morning Herald. 2 Afghan refugees in Australia have defied the Taliban to continue their education. Sonia and Seema moved to Sydney 6 years ago and met while attending an intensive English program. They have since become best friends and are now studying in Year 11 at Barong Girls High School. In Afghanistan, girls are not permitted to attend secondary school. The pair are keen to go on to university and are interested in science. Their families have recently gained Australian citizenship. You're not a racist if you oppose unchecked immigration, you're a realist. The Sydney Morning Herald. English author Douglas Murray is facing accusations of racism and bigotry ahead of his appearance at Sydney's Enmore Theatre, due to his concerns over immigration and integration. Australia is now facing a similar debate to Europe on the issue, with the European Union recently acknowledging that parallel societies had taken root and the need to reduce unregulated migration. The question for Australia is whether it will go through a similar futile argument before reaching the same point. Australian society needs to focus on preserving a tolerant, liberal society while also addressing rising tensions over ethnicity, faith, and cultural identity. Biden signs $1.2 trillion spending plan, avoiding government shutdown. Yahoo! The Senate voted for a $1.2 trillion spending plan to fund the government early Saturday morning, avoiding a shutdown and sending the measure to President Joe Biden for his signature. Migrants' boost to economy overestimated, claims think tank. Telegraph. The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, has been accused of overstating the tax contributions it expects future migrants to make by £6 billion, $7.7 billion. Think tank the Centre for Migration Control, CMC, said that the OBR had exaggerated the earnings of skilled migrants, and that average occupation salaries for residents and skilled migrant workers in 2023 were £37,614 and £31,431 respectively. The CMC said that the OBR had therefore overestimated the average amount of tax paid by migrants by £1,855, and overstated salaries by £20.5 billion and tax contributions by £6 billion in its 2028 to 29 forecast. If you think today's immigration challenges are bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Telegraph. A new study published in The Lancet has warned that global population growth is likely to start contracting rapidly over the next 40 years, due to a combination of greater longevity and falling fertility rates. The study argues that this contraction will have immense implications for the global economy and the international balance of power. The authors of the study predict that 3/4 of nations globally will fall below population replacement birth rates by mid-century. In high-income countries, there is a baby bust occurring as birth rates decline. However, in many developing countries, such as those in sub-Saharan Africa, there is a baby boom taking place. This population growth is likely to outstrip the ability of these countries to create jobs and opportunities, leading to growing pressures on resources and a possible implosion. In high-income countries, policymakers are struggling to deal with the fiscal challenges posed by rising longevity and falling fertility rates. Efforts to address declining birth rates through family-friendly policies have made little difference. The study's authors suggest that mass migration is not an effective solution to these challenges, and that the politically and socially destabilizing effects of mass migration are likely to increase in the future. As its workers stream to the U.S., Mexico runs short of farm hands. Washington Post. Mexico is suffering a shortage of farm laborers, a problem that could be exacerbated by the U.S.-Mexico border wall program. The workforce is aging, with 75% of Mexican farm laborers over the age of 45. At the same time, the number of Mexicans traveling to the U.S. on seasonal agricultural visas has quadrupled in the past decade to 300,000 a year. The shortage is creating job vacancies that business groups in Mexico say could reach more than 1 million. Mexican farmers are calling for the introduction of a guest worker visa, and the Mexican government has plans to open a database of 14,000 jobs in agriculture to non-Mexicans. The agricultural labor shortage is due to economic forces. Mexico's agricultural output has doubled in the past decade to $45 billion. The country is a major supplier of goods to the U.S. 2 men indicted in case of Indian family who froze to death at U.S.-Canada border. South China Morning Post. Steve Shand and Harsh Kumar Patel have been indicted by a federal grand jury for their involvement in attempting to illegally bring a group of Indian nationals across the Canadian border into the U.S., a case that resulted in the deaths of Jagdish Patel, Vaishalaban Patel, and their 2 children. The indictment accuses Shand and Patel of conspiring to bring and transport unauthorized immigrants to the U.S. for commercial advantage and private financial gain. The investigation into the illicit immigration pipeline from Gujarat, India to the U.S. has also resulted in the arrest of smugglers in India. How the murder of 3 Syrians burnt alive in Turkey is pushing a new wave of migrants into Europe. Telegraph. Syrian migrants in Turkey are living in fear of deportation and experiencing an increasing wave of xenophobia. Over 3 million Syrians live in Turkey, with many more arriving illegally and remaining unregistered. The political and public discourse in Turkey has turned against migrants, leading to Syrians fearing deportation to their war-torn homeland. As a result, many Syrians are attempting to flee Turkey for European shores, often departing from Izmir. In the Bamyan neighborhood of Izmir, where many Syrian migrants reside, plastic rafts and life jackets are a common sight. The influx of Syrians into Turkey has become a political issue, whipped up by the opposition party as a way of being anti-Erdogan. Turkey is unable to predict the future of the Syrian conflict and the permanent displacement of millions of people. Refugee advocacy groups are calling for greater integration of migrants, who are particularly vulnerable to exploitation due to a lack of proper refugee status and work permits. Syrian migrants earn far less than the minimum wage and are often victims of violent attacks, with few cases making it to court. Cabrini and the American Dream. Yahoo! The life of Mother Francesca Cabrini, who is the subject of the new film Cabrini, provides a one-woman refutation of Yeats' perspective. Director Alejandro Monteverdi's new film is a poignant depiction of the life of this first American Catholic saint. Played with grace and gravitas by Italian actress Cristiana Dell'Anna, Cabrini becomes the center that holds in 5 Points, a neighborhood in Lower Manhattan where poor Italian immigrants lived worse than rats in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Biden campaign and Trump PAC release dueling ads on immigration. Yahoo! The Biden campaign and a pro-Trump super PAC have released competing ads on immigration, highlighting the issue's importance in the upcoming U.S. presidential election. Biden's ad focuses on Latino Americans and attacks Trump's rhetoric, while the pro-Trump PAC's ad criticizes Biden's stance on the border wall and accuses him of reversing policies that had halted illegal immigration. Immigration is viewed as the most important issue by 28% of Americans, according to a Gallup survey, and Trump is considered more capable of securing the border, while Biden is seen as better at treating immigrants humanely, according to an NBC News poll. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.